morning, everybody, and welcome. It's Macro Talk. It's Tuesday, 8 o'clock in the evening. How are you doing? It's the 6th of August. And I forgot to clean my glasses. I'll do that right now while we chat. It's going to be an interesting week this week. We're going to talk about something very meta, about motivation and where it comes from, how we lose it, how we get it back, that kind of thing. Because it's different when your hobby is something as challenging and difficult as this. There are a lot of things that can get in the way of it, and there are a lot of reasons why we may decide we need a break. Sometimes it's not even our decision, but we're going to talk about all of that kind of stuff in just a little bit. I think it's going to be interesting. I'm looking forward to it. But first of all, this week, it's not a presume week. It's an aftershock week instead. After stack week, sorry. After stack. It was a bit of a shock, but it's after stack. And that's on Saturday, 10 o'clock in the morning. It's free. If you want to attend, it's a post-processing discussion, workshop, gathering of the minds, and it's live, it's free, you're invited. All you have to do is get the invitation, which is over on my website, on my most recent blog post. You can find that by going to www.something or other, AWPhotography/blog/ oh dear, I named it something clever, saddle, but it's the latest post, and you'll find the invitation in there. Go look at that, and then you can get in on Saturday. If you don't come on Saturday, watch the video, packed full of useful information. This week we're talking a little bit more about how we make masks and how we refine them, but we're also going to be talking about how to make selections and the different tools that the AI part of the Adobe program now gives us for making selections. So it'll be very interesting. You want to be there. I want to give a shout out to the first person in the room tonight for the very generous gift that they sent me this week. I got from George Simpkins this fantastic book. If you live in the eastern half of the United States, you need this book. If you like Beatles, you need it. Not the Beatles, these Beatles. This is one of the best entomology books I have read this year, and I went through about half of it last night. Couldn't stop looking at it. The guy is a fantastic photographer. He also is an entomologist and knows his stuff. It's not just a field guide. It's much more than that. His descriptions and photographs of the beetles are phenomenal, but he also has a whole first section of the book which is all about beetles, about their habitat, their habits, their taxonomy, where you find them, how you preserve them. It's everything you ever wanted to know about beetles by somebody who's paid to know about beetles. This book is fantastic, and George sent this to me. George, thank you so much. It's very, very kind of you, and boy, I'm going to get a lot of use out of that. Thank you. So that's Arthur Evans, by the way, is the guy that wrote the book, in case you were wondering. I got a couple of questions today that I'm going to answer publicly because they were good questions, and they'll be quick to answer. Bjorn Kvam Bam got in touch with me to ask about the diffuser that I use. He wanted to know if I still used mylar or if I had gone back to using tracing paper. No, I haven't gone back to using tracing paper, but it did give me a chance to think about what your question was getting at. I use mylar not because I necessarily think it is a better diffusion material. I have not actually done a side-by-side test. I think it's a very excellent diffusion material. I actually use it for some of its other properties. It is indestructible. You cannot tear it. You cannot get it wet. Well, you can get it wet, but you can then dry it. It doesn't blow away in the wind like tracing paper does. And if it gets dirty, you wipe it clean. It also has the property of it sticks to Gorilla Tape, unlike anything I've ever stuck with Gorilla Tape. Gorilla Tape's great for sticking anything, and it sticks tracing paper too, but the only way you can get the tracing paper off is to rip it. You can't rip Mylar, it's indestructible, so the tape holds it on forever. You can literally put it on your MF12s, throw them in your camera bag without doing anything to them, pull them out and just flick them to get the wrinkles out, and they're back to normal again. That's why I use it in the field. I use it in the studio because it's so compact, and it's easy to clean, and it's permanent. That doesn't mean I don't like the diffusion that I get from tracing paper. It's just more convenient to use the other. Now, I did say in my response to Bjorn that it's not really about the material, it's about how you use it. And I do firmly believe that the secret to using any diffusion material is to use it in multiple layers, evenly spaced between light and subject. It just gives me the softest, most useful light that I can get in the studio. So, just saying. All right. Do you have a Lume Cube sitting around gathering dust or doing service as a paperweight, like mine has been since about a month after I got it? The battery went dead. It wouldn't charge, wouldn't hold a charge, would stay on for a couple of minutes and then go back to sleep again. So it hasn't been any good to me, but that's a problem because it's a handy light. There's so many times I would like to use it. So I decided this afternoon to take it apart, and when I did, it had a very strange battery in it, not one I'm at all familiar with. It was this size, quite thick, and I thought, well, there you go. They've got a proprietary band of LiPo battery in there that I won't be able to find. But I did what all good macro photographers do, and I tore it apart and pried the cells out, and what I actually found was a pair of 80-30-35s, which is a very standard LiPo cell, joined together with a tiny little PCB in the middle, which almost certainly contains a conditioner, kind of like a regulator for the batteries, a balancer so that they charge and discharge equally, and some battery protection circuitry. All you have to do is desolder this and put two new cells in. They're spot welded to those strips of metal, but you can solder them together, and you've got a new battery for your Lume Cube. If you need to know how to do that or want to know anything about it, the cells cost $1.30 each. If you're willing to wait for AliExpress. If you're not, if you want to get it over here, they're $5 each. So that is that's pretty good for a light that costs $9,000 or whatever that cost. It'll be working again before you know it. So there you go. The picnic. The picnic is on. It's a thing. It's real. It's happening on September the 7th. And September the 7th is a Saturday. It starts at 10 o'clock in the morning. We're going to get together, meet and greet and have some coffee and donuts and just see who we are. Then we're going to do a brief workshop. It's all free. The workshop will be using funky lenses in the field. It's going to be about short focal length, long focal length, macro lenses, probably some diopters and other things, just to change things up a bit. We'll talk about that, and we'll actually use them, and I'll demonstrate how you use them, that type of thing. So it'll be some good information. And then when we're done with that, we're going to go in the woods and we're going to ramble for a bit, and we'll dig through the underbrush and see what we can find to photograph, and it'll be fun. It'll just be field macro with a bunch of friends, and I'm looking forward to that a lot. When we get done with that, we're going to have a picnic, but it's not your usual picnic. It's not outdoors, it's not anywhere near nature, which is normally where picnics are held. This is going to be held in an Irish pub instead, which is just a smarter idea if you ask me. No wasps that I'm aware of, and yeah, it's going to be just fantastic fun. We'll sit around, we'll talk, we'll We'll learn about one another, and we'll do that socializing thing. I'm looking forward to it. Now, I need to know if you're coming, and if you are coming, I need to know if you're bringing somebody. I don't need to know who you're bringing. I just need to know what the head count is, and I need to know by Friday. The reason is because of things, reservations, things like that. So I had a list that I was keeping up with, and it was going very well, and then I lost it. So we're going to start the list again. I already have Tom down. Tom's coming. I already have Susan +1 coming, so we're good on that. If anybody else has already told me that they're coming, and I just didn't call your name out, you need to let me know. I'll find the list, I always do, but for right now, let me know. Let me know tonight if you're coming. Just, I'm coming +1 or a half a person, however many people you're going to bring. And it's September the 7th, 10 o'clock in the morning, probably go most of the day. And for my Patreon supporters, if you happen to be one of those fine people, there is going to be a private tour of the new studio after we get done with the Irish picnic. And everybody who's on Patreon is invited, as long as your shots are up to date. You have to be fully immunized before they'll let you down in the basement here. If you've been to Africa lately or anything like that, you should be fine. So that's an extra added bonus. Anybody who's coming to town, anybody who's driving in from foreign lands to actually attend this shindig, and you're going to be there overnight, or here overnight on Friday or Saturday, please let me know, and I'll arrange for us to have dinner together. Unless you don't want to, in which case don't let me know, and then we'll be good. All right, I've already talked about this week, so you know what's going on. Thursday we're going to do part 2 of this evening's chat, because there's quite a few things I want to talk about. And yeah, if you have not watched the Charlie Krebs interview, I would strongly urge you to do so. It's one of those interviews where I don't really say anything, because Charlie doesn't need any help. He's that kind of photographer. He will blow you away with his photography, and he is just a gold mine of information. So if you want to know not only what pictures he takes, but how he takes them, watch that interview. It's long. It's 2 hours and 19 minutes. That's 2 episodes of Ripley on Netflix, which I'm watching now. Fantastic. Absolutely cracking good story. That I recommend it. It gets a bit crazy about halfway through, but there you go. So watch the Charlie Krebs movie, the video. The video is on my homepage. No, it's not. It's on my blog site is where it is. It's also on YouTube, where you'd normally go. All right, progress on the BH2 rebuild for my friend Bill out in Seattle. It's coming along nicely. Rewired the motor, designed and built a new interface for it that we're probably not going to use, because we're going to use a belt drive, and finished with the mount part. This is the bit where your camera goes. It's got a 3D printed interface for it that's going to hold everything up out of the way. And I am right now 3D printing the base that holds everything together, and is the last thing I need to do. Then we'll test the motor and get it shipped out of here. Start the other 2 that are waiting in the wings. Okay, last thing. Competition. It occurred to me today, somebody got in touch with me through Patreon, but I wanted to extend this invitation to everybody. When we do a competition, we have winners, and we have people who don't make it through to the finals. It goes without saying, or maybe it doesn't go without saying, it needs to be said, that if you enter this competition, this is not a commercial competition. I don't charge you to enter this. There's no fee. This is purely for your enjoyment and for you to learn. So if you enter a competition, and at the end of the competition you feel like you didn't get a fair shake, or you feel that you did get a fair shake, but you'd like to know more about why your picture didn't succeed, everybody who participates is invited to ask me, and I will tell you. I will give you a synopsis of what the judges decided and why. Now, you normally don't get that in a competition. We do that for the winners or the finalists every time we do a video. We talk about the pros and cons of their image. But in the event that you aren't through to the finals and we don't talk about your image in the video because we're limited on time, I still want to give you that opportunity. So if you entered the competition and you didn't hear your name read out, you weren't in the honorable mentions, get in touch with me and I will tell you. I'll tell you exactly why you scored what you scored. I won't tell you your score. That's the one thing. It's just a can of worms I don't want to open, but I'll explain to you exactly how your image was critiqued, because this is about getting better at macro photography. It's not about anything else, really. So I just wanted to make sure you knew that. You know what the theme is for this month? It's I've forgotten. I've already forgotten. No, it's My Tiny Universe. It's whatever you want it to be. Not composited. It's a single photograph of your tiny world using whatever kind of props you want to use. Make sense? Doesn't make any sense? I'll give you some examples next time. All right, so what's all this getting back in the saddle business about? I couldn't help noticing when I was getting started here, I had a quick glance at the comments, and I saw that Robert, one of our long-time supporters and regulars, is going through a period of disgruntlement, and he's facing some challenges and feeling like maybe he needs a break from macro photography. That's what we're talking about tonight. We're going to actually dig into what that's about. One of the things I'm going to touch on is the fact that, to me, macro photography is also about community. This is not something solitary. It's not something I do in a closet. And part of being part of a community is being there to support people who are maybe not feeling it right now and maybe need a little bit of encouragement. Robert has been encouraging other people and been participating in our activities and been an active member of the competition since day one. He's always here. He shows up and suits up and is here to share his wisdom with anybody who asks for it. He's having a tough time, so show him that we're there for him too. I think he'd appreciate it, and I know I would. I hate to see people leave, and it's got nothing to do with numbers. I mean, the numbers I'm not sure make much difference. They don't make any difference to me unless the people that are here are getting what they need and enjoying the process. So it's always a little bit sad. It feels a little bit disappointing when somebody decides, you know what, I've had enough of this. I'm gonna take a break, maybe forever. But in order to understand why, in a hobby like macro photography, which is difficult, challenging, and frustrating at times, it's important, I think, for us to have a handle on why we leave and why we come back again. And if we're going to understand that, we probably should also understand why we got here in the first place, how we became interested in this. So what I want to do over the course of the next 2 hours is talk about my opinion. Now, I've been doing this a long time. I've been teaching macro photography to people who were strangers before I started doing this for going on 6 years, and for a little while before that in person. So I've been doing it for long enough to see certain cycles and certain kinds of personality and certain situations of stress in lives that lead to people to come, lead people to leave. And I've noticed quite a lot of people leave and come back again and face a different set of problems. And that's what got me thinking about this, was what about the people that have, for whatever reason, had their fill and left, and some years or months later decide, I'm going to give it another crack, and then come back. What is it that those people do right or do wrong that may expose them to getting right back into the same cycle? So to answer that question, to give you some meaningful thoughts on how we can practice our hobby more efficiently, more safely, more in a more satisfying way, so that we can do it over the long run. Because I think most of you would agree that we do this not as a temporary thing. When we take this up, we're thinking that this is for the duration. We want to get as good as we can get in the time that we have, and therefore we're going into this thinking that this is a long-term commitment to ourselves. Doesn't always work out that way, and that's what we're going to work our way around to. But let's go back to the beginning for us, whether that was last week or 90 years ago, whatever it was. When you took this up, when you decided to take your 50mm lens and flip it around backwards, why did you do that? What were you looking for? What kind of person does that? And let's talk about that first. Now, many people were enthusiastic photographers before they ever decided to try macro. I am not one of them. I actually have taken up all kinds of photography since learning how to do macro photography, but I picked up a camera for the single purpose of taking macro photographs, and not just any macro photographs, but photographs of the insides of people's bodies. I used the camera in the operating room a lot, and it was a great documentary tool to use, and that's why I learned. I had a film camera. I learned to use a regular film camera with a single flash, and took some really bad pictures with it. And it took me a good long time to learn how to use that junky equipment that I had that seemed very good at the time. But this isn't really about my story, and not many people take up macro photography as a tool to use in the operating room, so I recognize that's not going to probably be of much help. But let's look at the reasons that most of us will fall in one or more of these categories when we decided to give macro a try. It's most often, I think, out of curiosity and this thirst that human beings have to discover something new. I remember when I came back to macro photography after largely letting it go in my professional life, because the hospital I worked at hired a photographer. I guess they saw my photographs and figured that they needed something better than that. So they hired a photographer, and I stopped doing it. When I needed a picture, I just called him in. And it was some years before I had the time and the inclination to pick up a camera again. But when I did, I bought an inexpensive DSLR and a macro lens. I still have that macro lens, and I still use it a lot. The other first lens I bought was a 50mm f1.8D, a very simple, elegant Nikon 50mm lens, prime lens, that works really well in reverse as a macro lens. And I took some pictures right away, right when I got the thing, by hand, and immediately was hooked, because that curiosity and the interest in seeing things that I couldn't otherwise see without buying a magazine or looking on the computer was just too much. And this interest in looking at nature with a magical tool like a close-up lens just was too hard to resist. Other people will take up macro photography to find a better or more interesting way to express their art. Their primary driving force is not so much a curiosity about nature or science for that matter, or a curiosity about anything. They're not maybe that curious, but they love a pretty picture and discover that some of the things that we photograph in macro are unparalleled. There just are no non-macro equivalents for a butterfly wing scales and other things that we discover doing this. So the desire to find a novel, interesting way to express your art is another reason that people will try and then get immersed in macro. Understand that these are the reasons that people are attracted to it, not necessarily the reasons they stick with it. And I would say that most of us may get in it with a passion for discovery, only to discover a passion for the art. That's very much what happened with me. My interest in macro actually transitioned away from the interest in discovery, because I realized that there were a lot of people out there who were much better at that than I was. People like Charlie Krebs, people like Rick Littlefield, who are tirelessly looking for new ways to show us the world. They're better at that than I am. So my focus started to shift to taking the prettiest pictures I possibly could of the things that I found. Then there's the technical challenge. There are many of us who just love tech. We just love to be using the latest, greatest gadgets. I'm not talking about the stuff that you don't understand gadgets. I mean things in black boxes like phones. I could care less about cell phones and things like that. The kind of tech I'm interested in is the kind that I can do something with. Let me show you something that I got the other day, talking about black boxes. Have you ever heard of a flipper? This thing is amazing. It's a gadget, right, but you can program that thing to do just about anything. It's I think it's not illegal, but it should be. It really should be. It has RFID readers and Wi-Fi and Bluetooth and near field and all of that stuff built in. I'm using it to try to get my 3D printer to work remotely. I've always wanted to do that, and I'm going to put a camera on it too so I can see what it's doing. When I do that, I won't have to turn around like that or walk 4 feet over to the printer. Won't that be handy? Anyway, so people get into it for the technical challenge. They hear, and rightly so, that macro photography at magnification is difficult. It's really difficult. It's difficult to get a single good photograph, let alone 300 of them in a row. So people who are drawn to that kind of high-tech, fiddly stuff, where you have to learn how to build your own tools. I mean, these days, 90% of the stuff that I use in my macro photography I've made myself. Now that's mostly because the stuff I want to use, nobody makes it. You can't buy it, so you have to make it. And you learn how to do that, and that tech part becomes a huge part of it. Somebody asked me the other day, are you interested in macro photography, or are you interested in building things that are related to macro photography? Yeah, well, yes, I am, both. That's exactly right. I mean, I find that this, of all the photographic disciplines, is at the bleeding cutting edge of photography. We're doing things here that if we want to do it, we've got to build it ourselves. I saw an article this week a video article on, gosh, I can't remember where I saw it, in one of those online magazines, about a kind of stereoscopy that I read about years ago and thought had just died and gone away. But it was a fascinating article by somebody who's been doing some wiggle stereoscopy. That's right, wiggle stereoscopy. And it immediately made me think, that is the kind of thing that I want to try. Now, go to B&H and ask them if they have a wiggle stereoscope for sale, and they'll get you arrested, I'm sure. They're not that kind of shop. There isn't one. There is no such thing as a wiggle stereoscope. There have been dozens of different kinds of stereoscopes that people have invented, but the wiggle thing is a new one to me. It uses a video camera in a device that causes it to wiggle in a very predictable way, and while it's wiggling, it's taking pictures, stacked pictures, so that when you process all of that massive amount of data, you end up with this. If you've ever seen one of Rick Springfield's music videos, right? If you've ever seen one of Rick Littlefield's stereo, I forget what he calls it. It's the side-to-side moving stereo. If you've ever seen that, it's like that, only more movie. It's more wobbly than that. I'll find some pictures and show them to you, but it's very entertaining. That's the kind of thing I'm talking about. You need to stop me from digressing. I need a red button on the desk that goes off when I digress. One of the other reasons that people are drawn to this is the community and the shared interest. The more specific, the more difficult a hobby, the more niche the interest is, the tighter the community is that forms around it. Partly because we have to do that. There isn't that much written. Well, I suppose there's more than just a little bit, but when it comes to learning this stuff, you need to surround yourself with people who've done that before or who are also doing it now. You also need to surround yourself with people that need your help in learning it. You can only really learn a subject when you're teaching it, as I have learned over decades of doing it. And it's within that community of shared interests that we find that opportunity to teach, opportunity to learn, and the place that you'll find other people who are struggling with the same kind of technical and artistic issues that you are. So I prefer when these groups are personal, actually physical groups. But this particular online community of ours doesn't feel online. It really doesn't. It feels much more intimate than that. And I know the people much better than I know the people in any other online group I've ever participated in. So while I think it would be better if we had a room where we all 100 of us got together on Mondays and on Tuesdays and Thursdays, that's a bit impractical. This is the next best thing. Some people find macro photography stimulating as a source of mindful engagement, almost a mindfulness exercise. There are things we do in macro photography that really don't translate well to big stuff photography. One of the things I get immense pleasure out of is going out with my camera to a very limited area. Maybe it's one corner of a field. In one instance, it was just one rock sticking up out of the ground. And I will slow myself down. I'll slow my thinking down. I'll slow my movements down. And I will just focus on that rock and what's living on it. And I will photograph it to the best of my ability with the equipment that I've got. That's what I do. I try to do that at least once a week, to get out and get into that zone and get into that mindset, which can only be described as a form of meditation to me, because it really is. I mean, ask anybody. I totally lose track of time. I have no idea how long I'm out there. I even don't know what I photographed. I am so focused on what I'm doing, I'm not paying attention to it in the way I normally do, which is a good thing. It's mindfulness. At least it's my version of it. So I didn't get into this for that. That was a byproduct. I discovered that. But sometimes people hear about the effect that this kind of macro has and the opportunities it gives you to focus on things other than problems and yourself and the world. This is a powerful tool for that. Some people are hungry learners, lifelong learners. They're always looking for new skills to develop. They're always looking for new things to learn. Unlike most areas, with the possible exception of things like astrophotography, which is, I would say, equally if not more challenging and hard to learn, this is a cornucopia of opportunity to get better at something that's not easy. And some people are just drawn to that. They're the people, you know them from when you were in school, that at the beginning of the year, when you were signing up for your courses, you overheard them asking an advisor, well, what are the most difficult things they had this year? That kind of person. They also sat in the front row in lectures. Yeah, pretty tough to be around, those folks are. Okay, so they're reasons that we get here. They're reasons that we're attracted to this. Why then do so many of us, and it's a reasonably staggering number if you look over the entire career of a macro photographer, especially an amateur macro photographer, why do so many of us quit? Doesn't make much sense. You'd think if it had all of this stuff to offer and we were to get all of these benefits from it, why then would we quit? Well, it's a whole different set of dynamics going on in this particular hobby that I think makes it more likely than in some other disciplines that we would get tired of it and want a break. I think that one of them is the technical side. The whole appeal of the technical part can be and can get a little bit too much for some people. After a while, the technical difficulties can be really frustrating. If you have got all of your motivation and your interest fired up at full speed, you've bought the equipment, you've spent the time and the money learning how to use it, you come to every live stream in the hopes that one day I will accidentally say something useful to you. You've done all of this, yet you've taken 15 focus stacked images in a row and you hate every one of them. So you take a break, 2 or 3 days, you come back and you try it again, you do 20 pictures and they're all pants and you can't figure it out. You try everything you're told, you get somebody to look at the pictures with you. There are too many things to keep track of. What is it, the diffusion, or is it the light? Is it my lens? Is it vibration of the camera? Is it vibration of the room? What is it? What is it? The pictures are terrible. How do I get to the bottom of it? And that can be a painfully frustrating experience. And I would dare say, I will dare to say, that not one of you here tonight, unless this is your first day of macro photography, in which case I do apologize for this topic, but not one of you has been through your macro experience without feeling that feeling of, this is too much, this is too frustrating, this is not rewarding my hard work nearly enough for the effort that I'm putting in. I mean, I know I feel that way. I don't feel that way as much as I used to. I think you get better, not at the necessarily dealing with the technical difficulties. You get better not necessarily at overcoming the technical difficulties. You get better at dealing with the frustration, or I do. And we'll talk a lot more about that later on. But another thing that will stop people dead in their tracks is the time commitment. I can't do this. I mean, when I was taking pictures of what do other people take pictures of? Skyscrapers. I would go out and I could take 10 pictures, 20 pictures, 30 pictures in an hour or two, and then go on and do my other stuff. But this business of 500 images in a focus stack on an insect that it took me 3 hours to clean, that's ridiculous. That's too much time. And that is a big part of the equation. People are often, they hear about it, but I think we all think we're a bit unique. And I think anybody who hears people griping about how this picture took them 4 hours to take, you wouldn't be human if you weren't thinking, yeah, well, it might take him 4 hours to take, but I can do it in 2. I know I can. Then the reality sets in that no, most of that 4 hours was actually waiting for the flash to recycle, so that does take 4 hours. The time commitment can be just a bit overwhelming because some people, not me, other people have lives that they do other stuff in. I can't imagine that. I don't have time for other stuff, but some people do. Maybe the other stuff was already there and going on before you took up macro. But time constraints, getting married, that'll kill your macro in a hurry. And your guitar playing, you name it, they'll all come under the gun. So whether it's because you're going back to school, you got another job, you had to pick up a second job, time is our greatest enemy. It's constantly squeezing us. It gets worse as you get older. I can understand that. The cost of the equipment, it doesn't have to be a back-breaking investment, but it is for most of us. We can't help it. Macro does attract some gear-loving people, and it's because we've got so much cool gear. And then there's the stuff we make and everything, but money is an issue. What is the most expensive lens that a camera company makes in its regular range, not including ultra long primes? What is it? It's always the macro lens. It's the most expensive lens in anybody's lineup because it is the most technically complicated lens to make. It has to do things that none of their other lenses do. It's built differently. It takes more research and development. They're more expensive, and from there everything else goes along with it. Everything that has macro stuck on the end of it is more expensive. You will very quickly learn that you can really tell a difference between a good camera and a great camera doing this. The rigs that you build are expensive. Focus rails are expensive. And before you say, oh, it's easy for you to say, but you just build your own. Well, I do, but that's more expensive. If you think I have ever saved a penny building my own stuff, you've got it completely backwards. It's tremendous fun, but the one thing it is not is cheaper. So yeah, it is expensive, and after a while, it can add up to where you're maybe having to forego some other pleasures that you would normally use your funds for. So I get it. It can be a bit overwhelming, and with new gear constantly coming out and new things to try, this problem doesn't go away just because we were finally able to get the camera and lens we wanted. I have had a 3D printer, which I consider a piece of photography equipment, just like a camera really. I've had this for a year. I have been using it on an accelerating schedule now until it's running pretty much all the time. It's running right now. I am already trying to figure out how I can get a second printer. Now, that's ridiculous. See what I'm saying? It never stops. It never stops. Burnout or loss of interest. I have done entire videos and live streams on burnout. What it is, how we succumb to it, how it manifests, what we can do to avoid it. Burnout is a problem. It's when somehow the mathematics of it all shifts, and when we no longer have the same excitement and thrill that's driving our activities, that's giving us energy, when the burdensome part starts to grow in relation to the rewards part, we start to wonder if this is worth it. Now, it's predictable, and it is a phase. It's actually a series of phases that the people who become experts in a field like this have to overcome. But don't get me wrong, everybody goes through them. Everybody goes through them. Periods where it doesn't seem worth it, that it's too much work, too much energy is being burned for not enough reward. These episodes usually come right before a blisteringly spectacular surge of productivity and reward where you wonder how you could ever have thought that. But when you're in it, that's not what you're feeling. And burnout stops people dead in their tracks. It's important then, and we'll talk about this in the second part, when we're trying to protect ourselves against the predictable things that are going to bring us down or force us into an early retirement or at least a long holiday. The way we avoid that is by setting goals and setting workflows and schedules that make sense in our lives. It's a mindful thing. It's not something that happens by accident. Some people find the physical demands of macro photography to be problematic. If I was a purely field macro photographer, I might feel that way too from time to time. I'm getting to where I have an issue with both of my knees that would make spending all day every day out in nature pretty uncomfortable for me. Fortunately, most of my stuff is spent indoors, or at least more than half of it, but physical limitations, believe it or not, can be a real barrier for some people. If, for example, the vicissitudes of life leave you requiring the use of a walking aid of some kind, geez, that will put a crimp on your macro if you're a field macro photographer. It will. You can get around it, and people do, but yeah, physical limitations are real. Then there are, and I mentioned this last because it's been on my mind the most, some people live in places where you can't do macro photography all year round, like here, Peoria. Yeah, not to make too fine a point of it, some people live north of here. There are places apparently that people live that are north of here. Canada is one. Have you ever been to Canada? It's very cold. When it's not cold, it's got flies that will eat you alive, called black flies. They're like mosquitoes, only they're more horrible. And yeah, so there are real reasons why people who love the idea of macro photography don't like the idea of macro photography where they are for part of the year. 40 degrees below, unless you're into snowflake photography, not a whole lot to take pictures of out there. So it makes the hobby a little less exciting when you are really strictly limited by where and when you can do it, and that will put some people off. I'm going to hold off on getting into the things that drive people to return after they have been beaten into submission by one or some combination of those factors. But that's where it gets really interesting. What brings us back and what we can do to learn from past experience, to understand what's pulling us back and find a way to do it right this time around. That's really what the focus is going to be on Thursday. is what do we do armed with this knowledge of why we got into it, why we got out of it, and why we're coming back. How can we use that information to stick around this time? And that's what we're going to talk about. But now I'm going to stop, and I've noticed an almost non-stop going by of comments in the commenty thing, so I want to have a quick look at it and see if there's anything that I need to answer or address, because there almost always is. And so that I'm not talking to you while looking off to the side, I'm going to bring it onto my other computer screen. It's noisy down here. There is a washing machine going. My friend Laura has a washing machine that does not, for some reason, sound like a cement mixer, like I'm used to. So it's really quite quiet, and so that's not bothering me. The printer is, though. There has been a printing disaster on aisle 3. That's very disappointing. I haven't had a mishap like is happening right now ever before. I have my part has separated from the bed and wandered across the print bed. It's probably did that 2 hours ago and I didn't notice it. That's a shame. I'll have to start that all over again, and it was a 4-hour print. That's why I need another printer. Anyway, let me see. Oh, Joseph, I was only kidding. Let me see. Who's here today? Lots and lots and lots of people. George was here first. George, thank you again for the book, sir. That was wonderful. Robert, I'm talking to you. Enough of that. Mike Olson, is it hot in Phoenix? It's always hot in Phoenix. I bet it is. Oh, it's raining, so it's probably a bit cooler. Well, good for you. Susan, bravo on the Charlie Krebs interview. Well, thank you so much. I enjoyed it. I didn't do anything. It was just a pleasure to be there and listen to the great man talk. Fantastic couple of hours I spent. Gary, greetings. Cool and wet, South Carolina. Joseph, slightly cooler and wet, Detroit. Get used to it. And let me see. Larry is here. Larry, greetings. You probably heard me say that about the print. I can't turn my computer around because it'll disconnect. But yeah, I've done something wrong. It's a new filament that I'm trying. That's probably the problem. But we have non-adhesion going on. Laura is here. Well, she's actually here. I think she's up through the ceiling there, as well as here. So hi, Laura. That's kind of a bit meta right there. Strange. Michelle's here. Greetings, and let me see. Robert from Ocala. Robert, I have gone through the list and made a list of my own, and yep, I'm all on board. Fingers crossed I have a reason to make the trip. That was very cryptic for the rest of you. It was about an auction that he told me about that is very exciting and promising looking. Alistair's here and being bouncer tonight, doing a great job. Thrown a few people out already, I hear. Good for you, Alistair. Good job. David, I agree. No more sweet thang. Okay, fair enough. That's 2 votes against. If anybody does like sweet thang, let me know, and we'll see if we can get more than 2 votes for it. Otherwise, I'll dig out something else for next week or for Thursday. I thought you liked that song. Everybody said nice things about it. Oh well. Don't really care for the sweet thang music. That's 3. Enough's enough. I'm done. Russ, greetings. How are you? And let me see. I think that's most everybody who's been doing all the chatting. Nope, Paul's here from Berkeley. How are you, my friend? How's Berkeley? Julie, Julie, did you get my message this afternoon? I messaged you on the Patreon Messenger. If you can check that at some point, I would most appreciate it, because it was a message passed on from Bud. Klaus, greetings, my friend. How is Seattle? Nice, I bet. It's a good time of the year, I'm sure. Andrew, greetings. What is the password for the plot? What is the password for the plot? Don't know what that means. Am I missing something? I didn't know there was a password. I have to write all the passwords down. Do you want to know where I hide them? Not going to tell you. Phil's here. Is there a West Coast version of the book? I don't think there is. I don't think it's that kind of book. I think that Arthur works here in the East, and his book is about the eastern Beatles of the U.S. I do not think that there is a Western version, but I will look. It's not a handbook. It's not a field guide. It's an actual, more of a textbook. I'll dig around and I'll see if there is. But anyway, it's a good one. Chris is here from Adelaide in South Australia, where it's tomorrow already. Greetings, Chris. Glad you're here. We used to have a lot of folks from Australia, and my times got unfriendly for the Antipodes, and they all stopped coming, which was a shame. Zeno's here, as is Roy Bixby. Mylar doesn't discolor with time the way paper does. I have never had a piece of tracing paper long enough to know if it discolors, but I have pieces of Mylar that have been on my MF12s for 2 years, so I agree with you on that. John Lamb's here from Northern Ireland. Greetings, John. Gosh, John, you've been around a long time. We communicated, did we not, during the pandemic? I think we did. Didn't you enter that competition? I think you did. Could just be me misremembering. I do that from time to time. Okay. Let me see. You know what? I am going to I'm going to have to wrap it up. We've only got 3 minutes left. But listen, I'm not joking about helping one another with this stuff. We do get tired of it. We do need a little encouragement, a friendly word from time to time. I don't want to see Robert quit photography. If you've seen his pictures, you've seen his pictures in the competition. The guy's a masterful photographer. I'd hate to see him quit, but I'd hate to see him miserable more. Yeah, I think that Robert, you've got friends here, and let us know if there's something we can do to help. Sing out. I mean, yeah, I feel comfortable that if I was to say, hey guys, I'm having a tough time with this, I'd get plenty of support from my friends here. So I want to be able to give that back. So Robert, keep coming to hang out with us at the live streams. We'll get you back taking pictures. You'll hear something that'll make you. All right. And Alistair, I didn't know you hadn't been active. We definitely need to talk about that. Get you out taking pictures again. All right. I'm not going to be sticking my nose into these private conversations anymore. I know they're not really private, but oh, Larry's telling me I don't need a flipper to run the thing remotely. I know. I just didn't want anybody to think I was out stealing cars, which apparently you can do. I actually got it because my garage door opener wouldn't work, and I was going to try to program that to do it, and discovered that does a lot more. And then the garage door started opening again. So there you go. And Diane is here. Greetings, Diane. Glad you made it. Hope you make it on Saturday to Afterstack. Wiggle stereoscopy makes Joseph nauseous. Now that right there is a reason to try to do it. I was just intrigued by it and started having ideas about how to make an oscillating platform that would work to capture the images. All the same challenges are going to be there with macro, but the guy's name, by the way, was oh, I can't remember. I should have written it down, but the guy whose video I saw is pretty impressive. You might see it come through your feed. Anyway, if I didn't notice anybody, if they slipped by or were incognito, please forgive me. Oh, Bruce, my goodness, I didn't realize you were here. It's so we have most of Australia is back today. Bruce, welcome. We need to have a chat sometime and get caught up, my friend. And yeah, so that's wonderful to see. So we're out of time. So what we'll do is Thursday pick up where we left off, and if tonight was a little bit on the navel gazing side, don't worry. Thursday will be more practical, and yeah, please make it if you can. It's Thursday at 2 o'clock. I'm going to go over there to the printer and try to figure out what kind of calamity has befallen my non-techie self. And I'll see you guys back in a couple of days. There's another video coming out, but I can't tell you about it just yet, so I shouldn't have bothered saying that, should I? Let me know before Friday. If you're coming to the picnic, please let me know and give me a head count of however many heads you're bringing with you, so that they can all be fed. And I'll see you on Thursday. Good night. One more look at my magic thing. Isn't that cool? It's not magic, it's just ordinary, but I made it. See you on Thursday.